over the last year at having a conversation with former state legislator, city councilman, and Chamber of Commerce President Daniel Davis failed. This could be an indication of just how difficult it will be for us citizens to make contact with his office should he become the next mayor of Jacksonville, Florida. Donna Deegan, however, answered the call immediately. What is the state of play? What is the state of the county and the city of Duval and Jacksonville?
What is the state of it? Well, listen, I'm a fifth generation Jacksonville native. I always am optimistic about our city. I think we have a wonderful city with every possible advantage that should allow us to be a top tier city. The state of play right now, though, however, is I think we have a ways to go before we get there because of, frankly, a lot of antiquated ways of doing things. I think we have to do a better job of bringing more people into the conversation and do a better job of bringing more people into the economy in Jacksonville. And I think we'd be doing a whole lot better. But, we're a great city. And I think we can always do better. And that's really the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
Well, question, should we build more or should we manage what we have? And if it's both, what's the mix?
Yeah, I think there are some ways we can build more, but certainly you're already seeing the strain in a lot of places where permits were given a long, long time ago for things that are coming to fruition, and folks are not very happy about it. When I talk to people in neighborhoods all over Jacksonville, they're sort of frustrated with the fact they don't feel like they get listened to very much. Once these things are put into play, it's very, very tough to reverse them. And they feel like their quality of life is being reduced. So I do think there are probably some areas of town where we can afford to continue to build. Of course, there's also the matter of how we're going to deal with resiliency when it comes to areas we probably shouldn't be building in anymore simply because of what's happening with our climate. But I do think it's something that has to be managed. And I think that it can be managed. But I don't think I'm not with the folks who say hard and fast, no more growth. I think we can grow, but I think we have to do so in a smart fashion.
We've had some fairly aggressive activities by the last 2 or 3 mayors. Each one has left his stamp on particularly downtown. What are you looking at as far as that is concerned?
Well, I'll go back to the first thing that you were talking about, and that is tearing down all the buildings. I think what we've learned about that is that not only hurts the tax base, but it also hurts our ability to develop. I don't think that has been such a great strategy of just knocking down buildings. That said, I think we need a concerted plan downtown. I mean, it's become the joke that we are a city of renderings, that we always see so many wonderful renderings, but very, very little of that ever comes to fruition. And I think that the reason for that is that we don't have any sort of, I shouldn't say any sort of, I don't think we have a strategic plan that is well enough thought out and that plans for how we can keep growth going. It's one thing to put a building here or there. It's one thing to bring in a shiny object. And I'm all for those. I want to have a vibrant downtown that invites folks in. But I think we do that by addressing the not so sexy thing, which is infrastructure. I think we have to address infrastructure. And then I think as we build downtown, I think the idea should be that we build in such a way that it encourages growth. We have to change our street structure from so many one-way streets. We have to make sure that we have clustered communities where there are places for people to walk and ride their bikes to, where they have their grocery store there, or they have amenities around where they live. There are just so many. There's also access to the river, which I think is another really, really important piece to all that. I think that the idea that we're hearing about all the green spaces that we're trying to develop along the river are things that we have to do both development wise and also resiliency wise. So I think there are a lot of great ideas. I think the problem is there hasn't been enough cohesion there. And I think that, look, I'm not going to criticize the work that others have done. What I'm going to say is I think we could do a better job of a more comprehensive strategic plan to make sure that development is development that makes sense and that will continue and not just be one step forward and 2 steps back because, we didn't think about the fact that there was nothing on the other side of the street, or we didn't think about the fact that this was a one-way street. And so that discourages folks from, there's just so many small things infrastructure wise. I guess they're not so small, but in terms of things we could do small and large that I think we need to do if we really want to have a successful downtown.
Many folks don't remember, but Jacksonville in particular was a destination for many You came down not from New York, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Everybody wanted to come to Jacksonville because it was where all the happenings were.
That's right.
And somewhere along the line, things began to shift out a bit. Personally, I think you guys at the beach are the destination. But should Jacksonville continue to strive to be a destination, or should it strive to be a great place to live and work?
Why would we have to choose between those two things?
Because there's no money in just being a nice town.
Well, but my point is, I think we can still be a nice place to live and work, and also draw people into Jacksonville. I don't think we have to choose between those things. I just think that we have to look at priorities, Fred. I mean, I think that we have kicked the can down the road for so many years on infrastructure that needs to happen. We have not had a concerted plan. And I think that when it comes to the end of the day, we can be that city that is just like that city that was here at the turn of the last century when my great-great-grandfather was here. It was a city of incredible innovation. He was like everybody else. He was a shop owner. Everybody lived above or below the shop, right? There were huge opportunities for small businesses. We need to bring that back. This used to be a huge engine for small business. We've got so many small businesses in people's garages and bonus rooms right now that we need to bring into the light and help develop. Those are not things that are going to cost us a lot of money. Those are things that simply have to be priority. So you have to give those folks the tools to have the same opportunity for things like city vending and other things that we've given a handful of people so far. So I think there are ways to do both. You just have to, the old term that if we all do better, we all do better.
Yes.
I really think that's true. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the frustrating thing when you see sort of the development side pitted against the other. It's all better if we bring more people into the economy. The economy does better, and the big guys do better, and the small guys do better. We just haven't done a particularly good job of reaching out to those folks to say, we want to be that engine like we used to be. And as far as downtown goes, let's bring back more arts and entertainment to downtown. That's what's going to draw the young people to downtown. Let's give them things to do. Let's be a reason why people would want to come and spend their time downtown. As you know, Fred, very well, there was a mentality downtown for a while, for decades, that there really was the idea of, we don't really want you to stop here. Just keep on going. And I think that we need to change that. I think every city that is successful, or at least most, they have vibrant downtowns where people want to come and spend time. And I don't think that should just be the beaches, or the town center. I think that needs to be downtown, and there's no reason we can't have that.
Now, the last 4 mayors that we've elected have all been able to get elected without serving in the city council. Quite frankly, I think, with the exception going back to the former state's attorney, who came into office as a Democrat and then changed to become a Republican after he got in office back in the early 90s. Everybody else has gotten elected without having to serve in the legislative branch. So are you following suit with that? Do you think it's a good thing? It's a better thing not to have gone through the legislation, the nuts and bolts of serving in the legislature, and just go straight to the top?
Well, you know this from journalism. I was a journalist for 30 years. Mm-hmm. I was the person at the television station, and I said this to you when we were sort of doing our prep the other day. There is almost nothing that irritates me more than being called a television personality, because I truly consider myself a tough journalist. I spent a lot of time in investigative journalism. I spent a lot of time turning over rocks. I spent a lot of time covering politics. I went to city council meetings. I know how government works. Have I been in the middle of it? No, but I've certainly turned over a lot of rocks that way. And I don't think you have to have that experience to be a good leader. To me, what you want from a mayor is first somebody who truly can bring people together, that can unite the city, that can build build a vision and get people to coalesce around that vision, and then put the people that are the best people to have on the bus on that team. And I think that's what a mayor really needs to be. I don't think you need to have sat in that seat of city council. And frankly, there's probably a reason why none of those folks have gotten elected so far. And that's because they get beat up pretty bad on a lot of their votes. I think our city council in a lot of ways has not been very open in terms of its connection with the community. It's hard to participate in anything that our city does, from our website to the way we run our council meetings. I think people very quickly become frustrated with those who represent them all. Maybe it's fair, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day, we need to have a more open, transparent system that allows people to be a greater part of the things that we do in this city. So I think that's part of the challenges for folks that have been in government. But I think I've got plenty of experience that way, between what I've done for 30 years in terms of my role as a journalist and news anchor, but also what I've done in the community for the past 20 years, which is working with the underserved community and seeing where the pain points are. I think those are really, really important things to have as a leader. I think we're missing a lot of empathy in our leadership right now, and that's something we need to bring back.
Sides of town, there are different needs. You're this consolidated city. You're going to be mayor of it all, even though the Beaches and Baldwin have their own mayor and their own police department. They depend a great deal on the county commission, the Jacksonville City Council, to make sure they are funded and that their needs are met to that extent. How familiar are you with the needs? This is a loaded question, of course, but I'm going to give it. There are different needs.
Sure, of course.
On the north side, the northwest side, the west side,
yeah.
Arlington, Mandarin, the quote south side, and of course, where you are at the Beaches.
Well, sure.
How familiar are you with the needs, the different kinds of needs that are going to be on your plate come day one?
Well, like I said, and I'll go back to my experience in 30 years in the newsroom. I have probably been in every corner of this city, on just about every street in this city. I have talked with people across every socioeconomic spectrum. I think I very well understand the needs of what goes on in our various communities and the quality of life issues that exist for different parts of our city. I think that's something that I'm very well prepared to be leading on, because I have been with folks from all over this city for a long, long time. And like I said, my work within the underserved community has brought me all over the place. We don't just have underserved folks in a certain part of Jacksonville. We have underserved folks that are everywhere. So I do think there are certainly different needs in different parts of the city, but I think as much as anybody else could be, I am probably more prepared than any other candidate to know what's going on in the entirety of the city. And of course, we have council people that are charged with different parts of our city that I would certainly hope to have a good relationship with. But gosh, Fred, I think of all the people that could be running for this office, I probably know Jacksonville the best of just about anybody, by virtue of the fact that my family's been here for 120 years and the fact that I've been doing what I've done professionally for so long.
There continue to be the issue of food deserts, particularly in zip codes 32209 and over on the east side near the shipyards. They continue to have the same kind of issues, and economic development is something that continues to be talked about. But there has not been that terribly much movement from what now is the sixth floor of City Hall as it was once before. Right. There have been virtually no discussion about it, and the problem continues on. There are some advocates out there who would like to see who've made some offers, but I have not seen any movement from that. How familiar are you with the issue at hand, and what are you prepared to what kind of motivations are you prepared to put on the table to get this done? The grocery stores said they're not. The major grocery stores said they're not coming because there's not enough money for them to make.
Well, you see that we're getting Winn-Dixie back in the Old Town and Country, area, which is great. That's a good thing for that community. But look, there are all sorts of ways to skin that cat. There are all sorts of things you can bring in, absent an enormous grocery store, to provide healthy food for neighborhoods. And I'm pretty familiar with this. I don't know if you saw in the last it was probably a couple of weeks ago now, I released what I've called my good health plan, but I have a plan of 3 pillars. Good. I call my campaign Change for Good. And it's good infrastructure, good health, good economy. And wrapped within that is that issue. One of the people that has been really instrumental in helping me craft the good health plan, which connects to the good infrastructure and connects to the good economy, is Rogers Kane. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Kane, but he has been doing work in the underserved community for so long. And food deserts has been one of the things that was on the top of his list that have to be addressed. You cannot pick out one piece of health access and separate it from another, really, which again connects to infrastructure and other things. So yeah, I think we have to be creative. We're not going to get big grocery stores in every neighborhood, but we can work with healthy markets. We can work with the entities that exist to come into neighborhoods and provide certain days of the week when some of those things are available. At the very least, we can provide a space for that. There are some empty lots that we should be able to use for things like that. So Dr. Kane made that one of the things that he said we have to make part of the focus. And folks were asking me a million questions about it. Well, what about mental health? What about this? All of this is part of it. And so I think that in order to be a successful city, and I'll say this as many times as you'll let me, there is nothing that is ailing Jacksonville that political will cannot fix. Political will, political priority. And you said it. It's not been a priority. If it was a priority, it would have been done. If trash pickup had been a priority, it would have been done. If infrastructure had been a priority, we wouldn't be sitting here 6 decades after consolidation going, what in the world are we going to do to fill this $1 billion, hole that we have in fixing the sewer situations? We have to start prioritizing those things that will improve the quality of life for all of Jacksonville, not just for a handful of folks. And I think that's one of those issues.
You have control. The mayor has control. The biggest thing he has control of is the budget.
What is he? What's this he stuff?
The mayor has control. The mayor has control of the budget. He proposes, the council disposes. And that tends to be the tail of the tape from the time that the Budget Review Committee meets to the time that it is ultimately proposed to the council. What kind of budget priorities are we looking at? You've almost answered this. You've answered this to a great extent already. But the budget is the tail of the tape for all the departments. Because if you propose it right, generally it gets passed with very few arguments because everybody has enough time before it gets to the council to add their 2 cents. What's your budget going to look like?
Well, I will say this first of all, that I think that what I learned in going through the Good Health Plan, and I started with that simply because that's the space I've been in for the last 20 years. I've done a lot of work in health equity and in terms of that space. And I believe so wholeheartedly that health is at the foundation of a healthy city in every way. But the truth is, I found that there just is not enough accountability when it comes to how we're spending the city dollars. There's not enough accountability. There's not enough strategic plan. There are so many things we could be doing to bring in. We have had a philosophy in this city really since the Payton administration of, hey, no more federal dollars. We don't want to bring in federal grants. We don't want to bring in programmatic funds. We don't want to bring in, and I think there are certain things with strings attached you don't want, but there are all sorts of ways in which we could fund things in this city. And I've heard this, whether I've talked to affordable housing experts, whether I've talked to folks about green infrastructure, whether I've talked to people about criminal justice reform, whatever it is, the answer has always been that we we have not ever taken a deep enough dive to bring in the type of dollars that they're bringing in other cities to get things done. So
you're gonna come into office with a truckload of money,
right? No, that's what I'm saying.
From the feds, just for infrastructure, right, in particular.
Well, I wanted to preface that because I know at some point I was going to get the tax question, and I was just going to say we got a lot of money coming into the city, and there are a lot of ways we can bring money into the city that we're not doing right now. So and that doesn't have anything to do with raising taxes. I think we don't need to do that. But what I do think is that we have got to address the septic tank issue once and for all. And I think if we get some of these federal infrastructure dollars, and again, I don't know what those are going to be mandated for. So there may be specific things that those dollars have to be spent on, but that means that we could take that and supplant other things and spend some of that more money on the septic tank issue and on some of those infrastructure issues, lights, sidewalks, streets, those things that have been ignored for so long in so many neighborhoods that then affect people's health, that affect public safety, that affect their ability to work, that affect the economy. I mean, it's all connected, Fred. You can't disconnect anything from basic safety and infrastructure. And so I think infrastructure is probably the top budget item for me that would be a priority. We've got to really start to aggressively deal with that. And I think that, it's great that when we come around election time, people make noises about how we're finally going to tackle these things. But the truth is, it hasn't been our political priority. It hasn't. And we have to make infrastructure a very, very big priority. So that would probably be the top line budget for me.
But you're talking about making it a bigger priority for you. What more are you talking about?
I just think that we have broken promise after promise after promise to neighborhoods that have been waiting forever and ever to have basic infrastructure. That is affecting their quality of life in every way. And I think we've got to start putting our money where our occasional mouth is and more aggressively move toward that. I don't know how you can have big companies don't want to come to a city that has fallen apart in terms of its infrastructure. Big companies don't want to come to a city where the educational system isn't good, where there are so many underlying things that we kick the can down the road on that keep us from being the city that we can be. So yes, do I want all these wonderful, beautiful new buildings and things in Jacksonville? That's great. I just think that we must handle the infrastructure issues that keep us from building on that. That's why, Fred, you see these surges of things, and then you see us move back to where largely nothing seems to really change too much from decade to decade. That's the problem. I love what's happening with the Emerald Trail. I think that's going to be a fantastic addition, and it's going to really help to move some of that infrastructure around some of those neighborhoods that need help. I think that's fantastic. I think that helps in so many respects. But we have to have a more comprehensive plan for how we want that to look. And then we have to really put some money into those neighborhoods that have been neglected for far too long.
When I think Donna Deegan, I think progressivism. That may not be correct, but that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
The Confederate monument. Hopefully, by the time your election takes place, you won't have as big a deal to make about this as has been over the last 2 to 3 years. But it is still part of the past that many folks would like to put behind us or put it in a place that it belongs. Should we take down all of the Confederate monuments, or should we contextualize them?
Look, this is one of those things that I think, as in everything with Jacksonville, you can argue from a moral standpoint. That's very easy for me on this front. Let's also argue from a business standpoint. Okay, the business community has been very vocal about the fact that having these Confederate monuments up hurts business. It hurts our ability to attract business. So it's like so many of the things that I propose. Honestly, you said when you think of me, you think of progressivism. If that means progress, I'm all in with you. I like to think that I'm pragmatic. I'm optimistic and pragmatic. But what I think we have to do is, look, let's do the right thing, which is to see everybody's humanity in this city and to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to have a good quality of life. But let's also look at this from a pragmatic point of view. From a business standpoint, this does not help us in any way. So not only does it continue to injure people, it doesn't help us to grow as a city, especially if we want to be the type of city that is attracting young people and businesses and diversity and all those things that I think most Jacksonvillians want. So I think the reason this issue drives me a little crazy is because it's one of those issues that I feel like has become part of the culture wars, and it's made different than what it actually is. To me, this is pretty simple. These are vestiges of a time when we did not recognize people's humanity in a way that we should. And they need to come down. It's pretty much that simple to me. And it's simple from a business perspective that they need to come down. So the answer is they need to come down.
What are you going to do to make sure that you get the Democrats to show up and to make sure that you get a decent amount of votes from those on the other side of the aisle?
Well, I think if you look at there have been several polls that have come out on this race. The public polls that have been done on this race, I have led them all. The latest poll that came out from UNF, I was up double digits. I was up actually exactly double, a little more than double over my closest opponent, who is a Republican. I think this is a city that is absolutely yearning to get back to the point where we didn't so much care about the letter that you had next to your name. We cared about whether you loved the city, whether you had good ideas about the city, whether you could move the city forward and what your plans were for the city. Look, I got plenty of problems with some of the stuff that's going on in our national political scene. I hate, frankly, to see most of them getting pulled into the culture wars that we see in our politics. And I regret that it looks like that will happen locally as well. But like I said, Jacksonville is in my DNA. You know, I feel like I understand the city.
Now, what did you learn when you ran for Congress not too long ago? In, again, what was clearly an us versus them, your pragmatic approach to a really conservative approach on the other side. What did you learn from that? And are you prepared for nationalization of this race?
Well, let's be clear on that race and how it's different from this race. Less than a third of the electorate in that district, in District 4, were Democrats. Less than a third. Yet, we ended up with the highest performing red district in the entire state of Florida. And the reason is because we did very well with NPAs and we brought over some Republicans. If you look at this latest poll that came out from UNF, where I had 41% of the vote to the next nearest 20%, I had a winning coalition with women, people of color, and independents. I think it's because people know that is how I view the world. I spent the huge majority of my life as an NPA, and I very much have a lot of that mentality from journalism. I think solutions can be found from everywhere. And so I'm one of those people that likes to bring all voices into the room. Having said that, I agree with you. It will be a nationalized race. We've already seen that. I'm going to keep talking to the people of Jacksonville. I'm going to keep sharing my solutions for problems for everybody in this city. I'm going to keep showing that I am showing up for the things that we need in this city. And I frankly will point out when my opponents are not doing so. If you have followed me, as you say you have over the years, Fred, you know I am not at all afraid to speak truth to power. People tell me very often that I worry about you because you just seem too nice, and I don't know if you can be nasty enough. I don't think it's about being nasty. I think a lot of people are exhausted with nasty. What I am willing to do is call things as I see them, and as people pull in these toxic consultants, as they pull in these nationalized red meat issues, as they frankly bring people into this city through their campaigns, that you got to ask yourself, What do they want in return? Those are the types of things I will bring into the campaign, because I think people need to answer those questions. I think that those are things that are important for people to think about when they think about who they want to lead the city. But by and large, I'm going to do what I do and I have always done. And that is to be, one of the people of Jacksonville. And I have had conversations with people in this city my entire life. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And that's why I'm spending most of my energy right now just working on the ground, trying to figure out, where do I need to be? It's a big city, right? Right. But what I learned from the congressional race was, you really have to show up in retail politic in this town. You're not going to win from 30,000 feet with a bunch of money. You got to get in the neighborhoods, you got to talk to people, and you got to be present. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we got to do that for about 3 months, and then for the rest of the time, we were stuck on Zoom and Facebook. But that's what's needed. If we end up with another COVID spike, and I have to put on 3 masks, I'm going to do it, because I'm not going to not get in the neighborhoods this time.
Yeah, we just put on the mask and head on out. Put on a mask and a hoodie and head on out. That just doesn't stop anything from happening. Why you? Why now?
Because Jacksonville is just, I feel like we're so on the cusp of being a great city. And I think right now, more than ever, because of exactly some of the things that we have discussed, we need a unifier. We need somebody who loves the city, who's not in this for political aspiration, but who is literally in this because she sees the pain points and wants to create that connection with the city that will allow us to solve problems. So I am a pragmatic problem solver, and I think somebody who loves and has empathy for every person in this city. And I can't think of a better time for that right now. I think people are starved for aspiration. I think they are starved for connection. And I think people are exhausted from the anger and the polarization. And I hope that with my campaign, that's what I've been preaching for the last 20 years, Fred. We gotta choose love over fear. And that means love for each other. And that means we see each other. And we have to use that as a priority for our city. And I think that's my strength. So that's why me. That's why now.